What's going on, guys? This is Empty Box, and today we're going to take a look at one of the newest releases for Assetto Corsa on the official content side of things, the Mazda 787B, the 1991 quad-rotor powered Le Mans winning Mazda. But alongside this car, there was also the MX-5 first generation OG Miata that was released, as well as free content there. And then the Porsche 911 GTE 2017 version with the engine pushed forward a couple of inches to make room for massive diffuser and super mega downforce. That is now released and available as well. But both the Mazda and, well, the Mazda, I guess I could have phrased that better, are free content to all owners of Assetto Corsa. Both cars started off as mods originally, and then they were scooped up by Kunos, turned into official content, and that's that. But I'm not going to be making reference to the mod versions of this car or the MX-5 if I do a video on that, because I haven't driven either one of the mods recently enough to have a good baseline opinion as to the differences and all that. I'm sure many of you guys out there already know that and know the differences and probably have seen all the videos and all that, because I am kind of a little bit late to the party on this one. But at least I tried to change it up by not driving the 55. Sorry. With that iconic, green and red silver Le Mans winning livery that totally looked ridiculously ugly until it actually won, and then everybody's like, holy crap, that looks amazing. And it does look amazing. But whoever designed that originally probably had people looking at him like, what the heck? Anyways, we got a quad rotor powered Group C car, so let's go ahead and just, skip the talk and get straight to the screaming. story time here. Before we get to that, in terms of driving this car here, Assetto Corsa, in my opinion, it is easily the easiest of the 3 Group C cars already available. That being the Sauber C9 with the extra low downforce Le Mans trim that will go like 240 miles an hour in theory, as well as the Porsche 962C, which the Porsche isn't particularly difficult to drive. It's just more so the rear end and that thing, and working with the crazy amounts of understeer and the crazy amounts of oversteer that you can generate. But if you can handle that, this car is pretty similar in terms of its general traits, which is not necessarily surprising. The lack of front end grip compared to the rear end. Kind of have to be careful with your power application, but not overly so. Obviously here though with this car, no turbos to babysit, nothing to worry about. Power delivery is actually very manageable and quite linear, which definitely helps make it easier. Especially if you're comparing to the Sauber C9 with the turbo turned all the way up, because that's when that thing gets fun. But I don't really want to spend too much time on the car here in Assetto Corsa, and I kind of want to talk about this car, the Gran Turismo Legend. Now, this isn't to discount the 1991 victory at Le Mans for Mazda in this car. Actually, the 55, but we're not driving an actual car, we're playing a video game, so you guys get it. But to sort of understand how that victory played out and why this car is so severely misremembered, where it now has a mythical status attained, you know, attached to it because of one victory, literally one victory, as well as a couple of appearances in very popular video games such as Gran Turismo. And we all know that since Gran Turismo 3, when this car was first in the series, everybody's gone ooh goo gaga. Oh my god, the Mazda 787B is so fast, it's so amazing, oh my goodness, it's the best car ever. You know, they banned the rotary because it was so fast it won the race, and they just couldn't handle it because they're all butthurt because the rotary's so good. Oh my god. Which, sorry to people out there, but that's often how it feels. And that's not to say I hate the rotary, because I think it's freaking awesome that they basically have spinning Doritos turned into an engine. And obviously, the whale that these things make, I mean, it's unique, it's awesome, I like it a lot, don't get me wrong. But this car is not the car that the myth of Gran Turismo has made it out to be. It was actually, by factory efforts, quite a poor car in terms of performance, and it was really beyond one race in 1991, which, let's be honest here, the only race that matters. This car was basically just kind of there, which is kind of, you know, Mazda prototypes in general, apparently. Par for the course. Shots fired. Shots fired. But anyways, as to how this car actually ended up winning this race, winning Le Mans in 1991, which is why it was in Gran Turismo and why it's achieved the fandom that it has. Let's start by taking a look at Group C and talking about that a little bit. And really the most relevant thing is the fact that Group C was an open formula in terms of what type of engine. You just had to use a certain amount of fuel at most for a certain race distance, and that was that. Porsche wants to run their turbocharged flat 6. Go on, do so. Jaguar wants to race, you know, a high displacement V12. Good for them. Fantastic. Then you had Mercedes with their thunderous V8 turbocharged. You know, just a wide variety of engines, and that was fantastic. And These cars were incredibly fast. In fact, were probably actually legitimately faster than Formula One cars back in the day. Thank you, ground effects. But just crazy, crazy cars. Tons of manufacturing involvement. Sorry about that. But tons of manufacturer involvement. You had Porsche, Lancia early on, you know, Mazda, Mercedes, Toyota, Nissan, Jaguar. You know, and that's not even to count some of the GTP programs over here in the United States, but which were similar cars, but not totally entirely. But it became a manufacturer playground, and it was popular. The racing was exciting. People liked the cars. It was a success. It was an absolute success. And then what ended up happening in the late 80s, early 90s, well, it was too much of a success. So things had to get political. And that's where the story with the 787B really begins to pick up. Because for 1991, the FIA basically insisted that the next rules and regulations of sports car racing would see the top class, Group C, switch from an open engine formula to a 3.5 liter engine displacement formula. Why? Because Formula One. Basically, the goal was that they would make sports car engines the exact same as F1 engines, and therefore all those manufacturers who are spending a crap ton of money making really fast Group C cars to win one race because that's all anybody cared about in Le Mans, well, they would just go spend their money in Formula One, make Formula One better, and, well, that's all that matters because Formula One is the pinnacle of motorsports. That's all that matters, right? It's just Formula One. Anything else is just irrelevant. That was the thinking. So when these new regulations came in for 1991, they basically did their best to make sure that the new cars were going to be faster than the old cars, because obviously you don't want the old cars to beat the new cars. That's just not good. That's not good looking for the engine formula at all. So at Le Mans, they installed a 100 kilo ballast to the old Group C cars, which the Mazda 787B was one of them, except it didn't get any ballast. The car got to run, essentially. Now, it did nothing wrong. Mazda didn't cheat. It just simply was not applied. We'll get to that reason here in a moment. Which means that they basically got to run 100 kilos underweight compared to the other Group C cars. Now, at this point, the 1991 3.5 liter cars were just totally unproven. They were not capable of lasting 24 hours. So basically, everybody fell back to their older, more proven 1990 cars. However, even still, at Le Mans, you had the first 10 starters were the new 3.5 liter cars because, again, you got to have the new cars up front, right? Right, guys? Yeah, you just got it, right? But of course, the 3.5 liter cars were pretty much totally useless when it comes to Le Mans at that point because they just were not proven, they were not developed. Peugeot ended up failing just mere hours into the race. Jaguar showed up with their XJR14, which would later go on to be Mazda's prototype in 1992. And then Porsche's prototype in like 1995 or something like that. But you know, Jaguar actually withdrew the car, opting to run the older XJR12, which won in 1990. But with the weight penalty was never really a serious factor. And of course, Mercedes ran their C11, if I remember correctly, rather than their C291. I could be wrong on the numbers, but basically everybody agreed that 3.5 liter cars are just not going to last, and if you wanted to win the race, you had no other option but to run the old car. So this really put Mazda at a huge advantage of having a car that was proven, reliable, and the 787B was particularly reliable. In fact, that's how it ended up winning the race. That's basically how it ended up happening. Everybody else got a weight penalty, and then that closed the gap with the Mazda because the Mazda was pretty dang slow. It actually qualified 12 seconds off the pole for the 1991 race, which, of course, the Mercedes were just absolute thunder. They're just gobsmackingly quick. And then you add in the fact that there were turbocharged cars, which meant that they could run, crazy amounts of boost during qualifying. That was just totally unsustainable, in an actual race. So the gap wasn't perhaps as big. However, at roughly noon on Sunday, about 3 hours before the end of the race, 4 hours, this car was 4 laps down on the leading Mercedes, and then it broke. Mazda remained reliable, cruised on home to victory, and that was that. But in that race, basically anyone and everyone either broke or was just too slow because of the weight penalties in the case of Jaguar, which, again, it's not necessarily to discredit the 1991 win, because it is one of motorsport's all-time great stories, and this car is definitely an iconic car regardless, because it is a screaming quad-rotor beast of a Group C car. But you do have to wonder as to why Mazda didn't get a weight ballast like all the other older non 3.5 liter cars. I think it's really as simple as, again, politics. I couldn't really find any information as to why this was actually a thing, like any conclusive proof, stipulating precise reasons as to why they got away with it, which, well, they didn't get away with it because they weren't cheating, first of all, but why they weren't forced to ballast their car up as well. And there's really nothing, as far as I can find. I'm sure someone in the comment section has informed me already by this point. But my belief is that Mazda was not really competitive at all. Before that 1991 race, and even after, is just kind of there. They had some okay results, but for a factory team to not be winning races, that's not what you expect. That's not what you want. So I think that basically the FIA allowed them to run their cars at the old weight simply to keep Mazda involved with sports car racing. That way they'd keep spending money and keep being on the grid, which, having more manufacturers on the grid, looks better. And of course, for 1992, they were on the grid with a Judd V10 powered Jaguar XJR14, rebadged as a Mazda MXR01. Which, that car, if you've never read up on the history of the Jaguar XJR14 and then the MXR01 and then the Yost Porsche SWC or WSC 95 or whatever the heck it is, name escapes me right now, that's quite interesting. It's quite interesting indeed. But really, Mazda won the race through sheer reliability in a year when everybody else broke, in a year where the regulations fell very much in their favor because they were pretty much an oversight, and that's that. And again, don't discredit, or don't take this as me trying to discredit the win or the achievement, because I mean, winning Le Mans, regardless of how you do it, as long as the car is legal, and this car was legal, you know, it's incredibly difficult. It's a fantastic achievement, to the point where, you know, Toyota and Nissan have been trying for, you know, the same amount of time, and they still haven't managed to do it. Because sometimes it really does come down to small, you know, $5 parts, and that's that. You know, that's racing. That's why we like it. But, you know, really the purpose of this video is just to kind of get people to maybe look at it less as, wow, that car just, you know, is the fastest thing in the history of mankind, or alternatively, they banned the rotary because it was too good. Because it wasn't. It was simple politics to try and get people to spend money in Formula One and get manufacturer involvement. Why can't we have nice things? Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Bye.